Welcome to another episode of Books and Bytes.
It's great to be here.
Today we're embarking on, well, quite a significant journey. We're delving into the powerful and frankly deeply moving autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela.
It's a monumental work.
It really is. This book, it takes us right from his earliest days, his childhood in the Transkei, all the way through his momentous presidency of South Africa.
An incredible life, documented in his own words.
Exactly. And our mission in this deep dive really is to try and extract the core of Mandela's story, to understand the key moments, forces, that shaped his extraordinary life.
It's a truly epic narrative, isn't it? Spanning decades of both personal and political struggle. And what's fascinating right from the start is how his sense of self was formed in those early years. His birth name, Roli Lachala, which translates roughly to troublemaker, well, there's a certain irony there, given his later path.
There definitely is.
And then the simple fact of his teacher giving him the English name Nelson, it immediately flags, the colonial influence he was born into.
Absolutely. And then there's his Thembu royal lineage. That's clearly foundational, isn't it?
Very much so. The Thembu are a Xhosa-speaking people, and his father was a counselor. So Mandela had this early exposure to leadership, to responsibility.
It's interesting how that heritage, which was sort of meant to prepare him for traditional leadership, ultimately set him on a course against the apartheid system.
It is. And losing his father when he was quite young and then being adopted by Chief Jongan Taba, the regent, that's another really crucial moment.
How so?
Well, his experiences at the regent's court, watching how decisions were made through consensus, importantly, where everyone got to speak before a decision was reached, that clearly left a huge impression on his idea of inclusive leadership later on.
So it paints a picture of this dual education almost. He's getting formal schooling at the Wesleyan Mission, Western knowledge.
Right.
But he's also absorbing traditional Xhosa knowledge and customs within the royal household.
Exactly. And then you have the traditional Xhosa circumcision ceremony, a really significant rite of passage.
What did that instill?
It emphasized courage, endurance, responsibility values that, you can see were absolutely vital in his long fight later.
But what's striking, even with that strong traditional grounding, he ultimately chose a different path.
He did. Rejecting that arranged marriage, moving to Johannesburg, it wasn't just personal, it was a conscious break, really, from certain expectations. And it was the start of his direct confrontation with the kind of racial injustice he found in the city.
In Johannesburg, the way he describes it, it's a place of these incredible extremes, stark contrast, opulent wealth right next to devastating poverty, all rigidly defined by race.
Must have been incredibly jarring coming from the more communal life he knew in the Transkei.
It definitely.
And it was really in Johannesburg that his political consciousness truly ignited. His apprenticeship at that law firm, Witkin, Sadelsky, and Eidelman. The fact that Lazar Sadelsky treated him, a black man, with respect, that was a crucial, if maybe rare, example of basic human dignity across the color line at that time.
A small thing, but significant.
Very significant. And then pursuing his law degree at Wits University, that exposed him to a whole range of anti-segregation intellectuals. People like Oliver Tambo and Joe Slovo, future giants of the movement.
And this leads to the formation of the ANC Youth League in 1944. Really pivotal moment.
It absolutely was. You have this younger generation, Mandela, Tambo, Walter Sisulu, pushing for a more, proactive stance, more confrontational compared to the older, perhaps more cautious ANC leadership.
They felt a new urgency was needed.
They certainly did. And that shift in strategy coincided with a real watershed moment in South African history, the National Party coming to power in 1948.
Right. And this wasn't just continuing old segregationist policies, was it?
No. Apartheid was something else entirely, a far more systematic, draconian legal framework designed to entrench racial oppression into every single aspect of life.
Which then, inevitably, leads to resistance like the ANC's Defiance campaign in 1952. It's fascinating to see the direct influence of Gandhi there.
Yes, the philosophy of nonviolent resistance. Mandela played a key role in organizing it deliberately, peacefully breaking unjust laws as a form of protest.
And that led to his first arrest, didn't it? Signaling a new phase of resistance.
It did. But while the Defiance campaign mobilized huge numbers of people and got international attention, it was met with increasingly harsh repression from the state.
Then came the Freedom Charter in 1955. What was the significance of that?
It was born from this Congress of the People, bringing together various anti-apartheid groups. It laid out this powerful vision for a future South Africa, non-racial, democratic, outlining fundamental rights for everyone. A real blueprint for the future.
But the state response was the treason trial, starting in '56. That must have been an immense burden.
Unimaginable. It lasted nearly 5 years, tying up Mandela and other key leaders. But even under that pressure, their commitment, it didn't waver.
They were eventually acquitted, but it didn't stop the regime.
Not at all. And then came Sharpeville in 1960. That was undeniably a brutal turning point.
The killing of peaceful protesters.
Yes, unprovoked killing by the police. It exposed the sheer violence of the state to the whole world and really forced the ANC to fundamentally rethink its strategy of nonviolence. Could it still work against such brutality?
So it's in the aftermath of Sharpeville and the government banning the ANC that the decision is made to form Umkhonto we Sizwe, MK, the armed wing.
Exactly. And Mandela is very clear in the book. This wasn't a decision taken lightly. He details that agonizing process, concluding that all other peaceful avenues seemed exhausted.
And their initial strategy.
Focused on sabotage, targeting infrastructure power lines, government buildings, deliberately chosen initially to avoid loss of life. It shows the ethical tightrope they were trying to walk, even then.
Then came his time underground as the Black Pimpernel. Quite a dramatic period.
It really was. Evading the authorities, traveling secretly, seeking international support, getting military training. It was a significant escalation.
Until his capture in 1962.
Right, which ended that clandestine phase and led into the long, long years of imprisonment.
But even then, the Ravoni trial, while he was already in prison, became this incredibly powerful platform.
Absolutely. His speech from the dock, the I am prepared to die speech, it's one of the most iconic speeches of the century, just laying out the moral and political basis for their struggle, his complete dedication.
Which resulted in a life sentence.
Yeah.
And then Robben Island.
Yes. The start of an exceptionally harsh chapter. The conditions were brutal, hard labor in the lime quarry, terrible food, pervasive racism within the prison system itself, all designed really to crush their spirits, dehumanize them.
Yet somehow amidst all that, Robben Island University emerged.
It's remarkable, isn't it? The prisoners themselves creating this environment for political education, sharing knowledge, debating ideas, keeping their minds sharp, their political engagement alive against all odds, a real testament to their resilience.
And Mandela himself, his strategies for just maintaining dignity, resisting in small ways.
Crucial for his own survival and for the morale of others. And his decision to learn Afrikaans, the language of his oppressors, that shows incredible strategic thinking. An attempt to understand their mindset, maybe find a path to communication eventually.
And the personal cost during those years must have been immense, losing his mother, his eldest son.
And being denied permission to attend their funerals. It just underscores the profound personal sacrifices involved.
Then things start to shift, externally at least. The Soweto uprising in '76.
A huge catalyst. It reignited international condemnation of apartheid, ramped up the pressure massively.
And we start seeing gradual changes from the government side, moving him to mainland prisons like Pollsmoor.
Yes, and eventually the very first highly secret contacts began. These initial clandestine talks about talks with government figures like Kobe Coetzee.
Those must have felt significant, the first cracks appearing.
Hugely significant. But Mandela remained firm on his preconditions for any real negotiations. Unbanning the ANC, releasing all political prisoners, lifting the state of emergency, non-negotiable points.
Which set the stage for that truly historic moment. President F.W. de Klerk's announcement in February 1990.
Unbanning the ANC, announcing Mandela's impending release after almost 27 years. It must have felt, well, almost unimaginable.
A dawn after such a long night.
Exactly. And his actual release from Victor Verster prison on February 11th, that image went around the world, an incredible symbol of hope, of the triumph of the human spirit.
But as Mandela himself makes clear in the book, release wasn't the end of the struggle. It ushered in a whole new set of complex challenges.
Absolutely. The transition to a democratic, non-racial South Africa was incredibly difficult, fraught with political violence, deep economic inequality, the bitterness of decades of oppression still lingering.
His leadership during that period seems absolutely crucial.
It was vital. His efforts to reassure the fearful white minority while also calling for unity and reconciliation among Black South Africans, preventing widespread chaos. And his international tours were key for garnering support.
Then the formal negotiations, CODESA, though they weren't smooth sailing.
Far from it, often contentious and punctuated by horrific events like the Boipatong massacre, the assassination of Chris Hanley.
And Mandela's response to those crises
Showed extraordinary statesmanship and unwavering commitment to keeping the peaceful transition on track, despite immense provocation. That ultimately led to the agreement for the first democratic elections in 1994.
the ANC's landslide victory, and his inauguration as the first president of a democratic South Africa. That must have been the culmination.
An extraordinary culmination, the symbolic power of that moment with former enemies and longtime allies together. And his inaugural address, emphasizing forgiveness and reconciliation, it sent such a profound message.
His presidency, though, faced immense challenges. Tackling that legacy of inequality, managing a diverse ANC, restructuring the economy.
Huge tasks. And perhaps his most defining legacy from that time is the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC.
A unique approach.
Unique, bold, often painful. Prioritizing truth-telling and reconciliation over retribution, trying to grapple with the past in a way few nations have attempted.
And his personal gestures of reconciliation were also very powerful, weren't they?
Incredibly significant, engaging with the widow of Verwoerd, the architect of apartheid, and his support for the Springboks rugby team in the '95 World Cup, uniting the nation behind a previously divisive symbol.
What about economic policies?
Policies like the Reconstruction and Development Program, RDP, and later GEAR faced debates and criticisms about their effectiveness in tackling poverty and inequality quickly enough. But his overall moral leadership, on the global stage as well, was undeniable. He became this global icon for peace and mediation.
And his personal life continued to evolve during this time, too.
Yes, his divorce from Winnie Mandela and later his marriage to Graça Machel, reflecting the ongoing complexities of his life even under the spotlight of the presidency.
His decision to serve only one term was also quite remarkable.
A powerful act of statesmanship, really cementing democratic norms. And he didn't just retire quietly. His post-presidency activism, especially against HIV/AIDS, showed his commitment continued.
And even at the end of the book, he acknowledges the journey isn't over.
Exactly. He reflects that the long walk to true freedom, true equality was still ongoing, which remains incredibly relevant today.
What really makes the autobiography so compelling, I think, is how human he presents himself.
Absolutely. It's not a sanitized, heroic account. He's candid about flaws, doubts, difficult choices. You see his humor, his famous stubbornness, and the sheer effort involved in forgiveness.
It reveals a leader who wasn't, born perfect, but who evolved through incredible experiences, constantly learning, adapting, a huge capacity for personal growth.
Definitely. And a very thoughtful, methodical approach to leadership comes through. It wasn't just charisma. It was underpinned by immense intellectual and emotional work.
Even after his passing in 2013, his legacy obviously continues to be immense in South Africa's institutions, but also globally as an inspiration.
It really does. And that core message from his long walk, that hatred is learned, it can be unlearned, and that love and compassion are fundamental, that offers such a timeless message of hope, doesn't it?
It's a truly powerful and enduring message about change, about resilience, about that ongoing pursuit of a more just world. Long Walk to Freedom offers such profound insights into leadership, courage, and that difficult path towards justice and reconciliation.
It really is essential reading.
We wholeheartedly encourage you to delve into Nelson Mandela's extraordinary life and this pivotal history by reading the autobiography yourself. To grab a copy of the book, just check out the link in the description.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Yes. Please be sure to subscribe to Books and Bytes for more deep dives into impactful literature. And perhaps leave you with this thought. Consider how Mandela's profound capacity for forgiveness, even in the face of unimaginable injustice, might offer some perspective on challenges in your own life, or maybe in the wider world today.